All right, so YouTube stopped allowing, they just discontinued that product. The product that I used called Google Hangouts on Air that streamed right into YouTube. No, I mean, they were putting up, I don't know if you noticed, but every time I went there, they were putting up warnings um, every week that it would be discontinued on, I think they said the 12th, which was yesterday. So what I've done is I got this little thing that's actually marketed and hopefully it's working here. It's actually marketed for like gamers that are saving that want to like show, you know, their action in a game, and then even have the talking into the game as well. So, although I don't think I've played too many video games in my life, I picked this thing up called Game Capture HD, and so what it does is it records any HDMI output on the screen. So we're going to try this out. Hopefully it works. So it's recording the lecture, but now it's doing it to my hard drive, and I'll upload it to YouTube instead of streaming straight to YouTube. And I did test it, but I have to admit I've not tested it for. I tested it, and it does work. It does actually record the audio, but I didn't test it on the web. I didn't test the upload to YouTube part. So hopefully this works. So it looks like it's working. I can see the audio input over here, and this is the video input. So we'll see. All right. So I think that the end of last week's lecture might not have, or last week's class period, might not have been, well, actually I know, it wasn't meant to be actually the introduction of JavaScript, okay? Really, I meant to get us up to that point, and we're gonna spend the next really 3 weeks on this topic. We're gonna make pages with web maps on them, and we're gonna make things a little dynamic. In other words, we're gonna make our web pages change when we do things, and we're gonna put things onto the maps. And part of making the map update will be moving the elements around on the map, or moving the web page. So another thing that I'd like to say is this used to be toward the end of the course, but I moved it up to the front this time, and I think that it's better. It's going to be better up front. Yes, it's probably something that's more foreign or difficult for most people in here, but we're going to get it. We're going to start at the beginning and kind of get it over with, and then when we move on to the back end part of web mapping, in other words, setting up web map services, it actually gets easier, and we'll be immediately able to consume them or use them in our front end, in our own web maps. And so then if you need any more help on the front end part, which is what we're doing now, we're doing the code front end part, there'll be more time to do that. So I think it's good. And again, another thing that I've said before, I'm not expecting everybody to become gurus on web technology, but we do need to learn about this in order for us to make web maps. Maybe someday it'll all be press button out of the box, but this is good stuff to learn. So today we're going to continue our discussion, learning these web technologies. Sometimes people call them HTML, CSS, JavaScript all together. That's what we're going to continue to learn about. Now, HTML and CSS, we've learned a lot about that, and almost as much as we need to know. It's this JavaScript thing that we still need more information about. So I have a little reading here, okay? But I'm going to base most of what I talk about today on the second file, which is called llexample.html. And it's an HTML file that contains some JavaScript, and we're going to utilize that. And actually, the way I've set it up, you could continue to utilize it for your own purposes for the rest of the course. It's kind of like a template. It is a template. It can be a template for whatever you want to use it for. I'll show you what it looks like just by default. So if you load I've downloaded it, and I have it. So I downloaded it, and then I went to where it was. I downloaded it just into the downloads folder, and it's called LL Example. And then I just right-clicked and said, open with Google Chrome. All right, so that's what it looks like right now. It's got what I would refer to as a header, and it's got a big map, and it's got a footer. So if you want to use this for any web mapping project that you want to do, you can do that, and you can put other things in the top and the bottom area. What do we call those things again? The technical term? The things on a web page in HTML. Element, exactly. Refer to those as elements. We can put other elements on the page. All right. So an element is something that you see on the page. Well, it doesn't actually have to be something that you see. You can hide an element and show an element. It's something that you could do dynamically if you wanted to. Hide and show elements. All right. So yeah, those are called elements. And what do elements have that allow us to, well, it's hard to say the whole sentence without. Elements have properties associated with them. Okay. A few of the element properties that we dealt with already are things like the style. The style can be set through CSS, but we could also set the style of an element right in its attributes. Elements can have a source, okay, particularly with images, but also with other things. Scripts can have sources, and elements can have things inside of them. The HTML that's inside of an element. In fact, you can add more information to an element using JavaScript. Okay, let's look real quick at the code for this page, okay, because this is really our first example of a page that uses a map that has a web map on it. So instead of right-clicking and saying open with Chrome, I'm going to open it with Notepad. And alternatively, if you don't see that when you right-click on it and say open with Notepad, you could just open Notepad and then navigate to the position on disk. So what I mean by that, oops, that's not Notepad. Notepad should be on all these computers. And then File, Open, and I put it in Downloads. That's where I put it. I don't know, like you might have put it in a different place. All files, and it's called LL Example. Now, if you have, I know the computers up here have Notepad++, which is kind of like Notepad. I'm gonna make this a lot bigger. I think I can do that. Actually, I'm just gonna make everything bigger. So for now, do something like do something like that. Okay. Right. Download the llexample.html. Download that. Then everybody down there downloaded it? Yeah. Thanks, Sarah. What's that? I meant Heather. I said Sarah. Sorry, Heather. Okay. All right, yeah, so right click. So go to this page, right click, and say save link as, and save that somewhere that you want to save it to. I have it saved on this PC downloads. See that? And I'm going to hit cancel, but you would hit save. And then once you do that, does this work for you guys to go to the file where you downloaded it? And say right click and say open with Notepad. Does that work? That's a little bit bigger than it was. Does that work for? Tell me if you put it in the code if it didn't work for you. No, that's not it. That's the other one. You want this one. Save link as, save it right there. That's fine. Now, go over to this window, and then right around that, say open. Edit with Notepad++ is fine. It'll look better. So that's it. If you also want to open up Notepad, just right click, edit with Notepad++ is fine, or Notepad. It'll look a little better. Just saying that. It'll look a little better in Notepad++. It'll like colorize things. Okay, so yeah. Yours is on the desktop. Go to desktop right here. Oh, here, hit cancel right here. Right click and not say edit with Notepad. And then yeah, it's a good idea. Like you already have it open here as well. It's good to now hit no here. Also double click on llexample. So now, hit OK. Now you have it open in more places. You can split the window like that. So it's good. Some of the students here are splitting the window and putting it up in two windows. I'm going to show you what I mean there, but I might not do that. So some people are doing this here. Okay, I think for my small thing that I'm trying to show you guys, I'm just going to switch back and forth between them. But that's fine for y'all if you want to do that. I'm going to go ahead and leave them almost as big as they can get. I wish that fit on the screen better. Maybe if I go like that. Like that. Okay. It's on the screen a little bit better. Now you can just toggle back and forth using Alt-Tab. All right. Okay. Now I have a bunch of stuff in the header, and I have a bunch of stuff down here, but we're going to ignore that for just a second. All that I have in my body is right here. I have a body tag that opens, and then I have three elements that I've placed in there. One is the header, one is the map, and one is the footer. Okay, that's all I've included in my HTML document. Now, what makes it look like this? Well, that is the CSS. And this time what I've done is, instead of making it a separate CSS file, which may be confusing at first, I think in the end, if you have lots of CSS, it might be well, at least more organized for you to put it in a separate file. But for now, I'm going to put everything in the same file. So it'll be a little less confusing than last week where I tried to separate them all out into different files. So here, I have my CSS. And this CSS basically makes the web page look like that. So there's a little bit of a reason that it does that, but what this says, what this first line says is, if it's got, well, what does the hashtag mean again? Anybody remember from last week? Not in CSS, but it's a good guess. In CSS, the hashtag, what's that? Yes, the hashtag is the ID. So in other words, what this is saying is this style applies to anything with this ID, or this ID, or this ID. So if it has an ID, header, footer, or content, it's going to get this style. Okay? Now, what this is saying is this style only applies to this ID, and this style only applies to this ID, and this style only applies to this ID. So we've got some style that applies to all three, and some style that only applies to each one. And basically all this is saying is that the style says it's going to, this one's going to be stuck to the top, this one's going to be stuck to the bottom, and this one's going to take up all the rest of the extra space. Okay? That's what this style says. So that's what has happened. Now, like I said, we're not going to be so hung up on styles for this class. When you're developing your web page, if you want it to do something specific in terms of style, come talk to me. Like if you see something that you really like, come talk to me and I'll help work you through that. Or if you want to spend some time reading online about how to get certain styles to look in certain ways, then do that. That's a valid thing to do. Okay. But we're caring less about style points and more about understanding here. So there's no reason to spend a whole lot of time understanding exactly what this is, but this is the equivalent of that extra.css file from last week, and we're telling it how to place the elements on the page. Okay, just to drive home that point here, now if we put something in here like hello, where's this going to appear on the page? It's in which div element? Yeah, it's hard to see from there. I need to make it even bigger. There we go. Is that better? Can you see that? All right. So where is the header here? Hello is in the header. I said it. So now if I refresh the page, then it'll say hello right here in the header. Okay? All right. Maybe I want to stick something else in there. So I could write George's map in there. Refresh. Okay. Now there are CSS styles for making that look better. What might you want to do if that was truly the title of your map? Okay, what are some things? What are some suggestions for the map title? You might want to center it, right? Okay, so we're not going to cover every single style, but it is possible to do something like this. Style equals text dash align colon, center. Did I spell a line right? I'm a horrible speller. Is it spelled okay? Okay. So now I refresh the page, and George's map appears in the center of the page. Okay. All right. Now this is what I was talking about. This attribute is a style attribute. This style attribute has the same effect as your style up here. So the best practices are actually to store your styles all together. So let's take this text align colon center out of here and put it up at the top under the header. And like I said, it'll have the same effect. It doesn't need quotes around it anymore because it's not something that we're assigning to that attribute in the header. So now it appears at the top. Okay. So it looks like that. All right. Is everybody able to reproduce that on your page except for maybe you chose a different title? No? Okay. I'm going too fast. That's what I hear. Sorry. What's that? You just save it and refresh the page. Save. Go back over to you. You've already saved it. Just not the whole thing, just everything besides body. I think the file got downloaded. Did you have all that? Let's try to download. Wait. Hit cancel. Go back to black. looking at the line. So you put it in, it's right here. This is the one you're editing. See, this is the name of the one you're editing. And then now it's over this.
No, that's what put one on next one. Yeah,
there you go. Hey, so I heard some no's down on the coast too. Okay, is it not working out for you all? You think you got it?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Yeah, I appreciate y'all helping out each other for somebody that gets it. So the mistakes that were made up here, Garrett, he basically wasn't looking at the same file in the browser that he was looking at in the notepad. So he was trying to change. So he was changing something here and hitting save, and then when he refreshed the browser, nothing was changing because he was looking at a different file. So he downloaded the file multiple times. So he had a leaflet example too. So that's one kind of got you. That actually happens to me all the time. When I'm developing websites, sometimes I'll save a new file, and I'll forget to keep looking at the same file and the changes. I'm frustrated. Why isn't this changing? That's because I'm looking at a different file in the browser than I'm updating the text file. It happens. So it's good to point that out. And then another case up here was that instead of downloading the file the way that I recommended, well, I wasn't really clear on it, but somebody just clicked it instead of downloading it, and then saved it once they clicked it, and it caused some issues. All right. Is it running now, Gary? Okay. Good. Okay. So that's great. So now, why doesn't mine say? Okay. Mine says George's math now. Okay, good. All right. Okay. So I'm gonna go a little bit slower. All right. So we have our elements. Now what we're gonna do is practice doing some JavaScript. Last week I introduced this topic by having you change a little teeny code snippet when you clicked on a anchor tag. Anybody remember what an anchor tag is? An anchor tag is a hyperlink, basically. So when you clicked on a hyperlink, an anchor tag that said USA, Mexico, or whatever, I did that last week, then it ran something. All right, now that does work, but less and less often we're actually going to be doing things like that. More often we're going to have in our, whether or not it's a separate file or whether or not it's just embedded like it is here. I have an element called a script, okay? And scripts allow us to do fancy things to the page, right? So first thing we're going to talk about are scripts. This script here does a few things. And we're going to leave out what all it does until later and come back to exactly what it does. But just to let you know, from here, sorry, can't point there. From here to here, that is the part that sets up the map, adds a new layer. Well, actually, it does it in this order. It sets up the map. It centers the map at a certain location, which happens to be this building. And then it sets the view level, which is 4. Okay? All right? And remember, maybe you don't remember, but we did talk a little bit about it. The lower that number, the more zoomed out you'll be. Okay? Usually we can go all the way into 20. So if I reset this and refresh, that maybe that's even too high for this map. Or maybe it's just too zoomed in. There we go. So there's Walker Science Building. I changed that to 18. Okay? And then we add that layer to the base map, this OpenStreetMap layer. What's that? See it on here? Oh, what I changed was this value right here. So we're gonna talk about every single thing on here in detail. And then this function is more like part of the template. What this function does, I'm not going to change anything on this function right here. What this does, yeah.
How do you set comments in JavaScript?
That's a good question. And maybe I'll do that as a demonstration here. Okay? So a comment, for those of you who have done coding before, what's a comment? Or even if you haven't done coding before, what's a comment?
It's a note to the person who's writing the program or reading the program to figure out what's going on and kind of give you a guide. It doesn't get displayed or activated.
Right. The web page, when it loads, it ignores the comments. The comments are purely for your benefit or for anybody reading your code benefit. So I've added a comment there that says set up map and layers. And then I'm going to add another one that says part of template. And then resizes map when window changes size. Okay? So there's no reason to edit any of that code. That's just part of the template down here. And I'll show you what I mean by that. I'm going to hit Control S, and I'm going to come back over here. And if I don't really even need to refresh the page. But every time I decide to change the size of my page, you see how the map updates dynamically and changes size too? Okay. Now sometimes you might be designing a web page where the map's always the same size. Like if, like let's say a web page, a page layout like Facebook. Everything's always the same width. If I make this page bigger or smaller, the width of my Facebook feed is always the same. And you could have a situation where you would have a web page and there would be content like things for people to read, a map, more things for people to read, a map. And in those situations, you wouldn't care if they made the page bigger or smaller, right? The map would always be the same size. It could be the same size. Maybe you could have a button that would make it bigger or smaller, but that's another thing. Okay? The point is that this web mapping element won't change sizes automatically, and it needs the help of this JavaScript to actually change the size of the page. And so that's what this is for. So this sets up the map layers, and this is the thing that resizes the map when the window size changes. And we'll talk about what each of those does. Maybe we won't even get to this one today, though, but I will get to this one today. All right, and finally, this one is just part of the template as well. However, this is the way that you could here. I'll put it like this. JavaScript code here. that you don't want to run until after the page loads completely. Sometimes you'll notice that when you try to do something in JavaScript, it won't work. And that's because the element hasn't been created entirely by the page yet. In other words, you might be doing something, you might be wanting to change one element that says the country is Mexico to the country is United States, but that element that you're referencing doesn't exist yet. In that case, you need the code to go into there. All right. Let's learn about a few things that you can do in JavaScript that help you as the programmer, that help you to make things. The first one is this alert. Okay? This is a little function. It's called alert. And if you write alert, parenthesis, and then put any text in there, it will show you the value of the thing that you put in quotes. The page just finished loading. So that's why it's doing this. When I refresh the page, that's why it's saying the page just finished loading. Okay? Now another one that might be more useful, because it doesn't bother people, is console.log. Console.log will do the same thing. The page just finished loading. Go ahead and type that in. Parentheses. Go ahead and type that in like that. What this will do is it'll send any message out to the console. And you've used the console before, or at least I've demonstrated using the console before. Remember how to get to that? In Chrome, you go right here and you say More Tools, and you say Developer Tools, and it'll show the console. There's lots of stuff here, so I'm going to make this go down a little bit, make this go down a little bit. Refresh the page again. Now I get this message here, but when I hit OK, I also get that message down there. The page just finished loading. So now I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the other one because I don't really want it there.
So if you would have put the console log first, it would have happened down below, and the alert would have shown. Exactly.
Yep.
Okay.
That's exactly correct. Okay. All right. So we've talked about elements, right? And elements, they have properties or attributes. Sometimes people use those terms interchangeably. Okay. Now, last week we used that function document. Remember document dot find, or was it get? Get element by ID. That's it. We used that function last week. Get element by ID, and I could write a header as the name of the ID. Now, I keep using this word function. Okay? A function means it's a little process that runs and returns results to you. A function is actually a little group of code, okay, But the code for document.getElementById is like built into the web browser. Okay, you can't go look up that code, but it exists. And what it does is it takes a string, it takes a set of characters, and it tries to find inside the document anything that's called header. And then it gives it to you. It says, here it is. Okay? And watch, I can prove that by doing this. I can say H equals. So what I've done here is said H equals document.getElementById header. So now I've taken the result of this function and stored it in what we call a variable. So we have functions and variables. These are two concepts. Now, what is H? It's a what? At this, after it runs here, what will H be? It's something that a web page has. It is a variable, but what is it? What's it going to actually be? Somebody down there say it.
The header, George's map, yours.
Yeah, it's going to be the header, which is an element. So H is going to be a variable that holds the header element. In fact, I can do something like this, where I say console.log H. So now I can see what is inside of this variable. And at this point, I'm going to save it again and go back to here. This one, and hit refresh. And now you can see that it printed my first console.log, which is the page just finished loading, but it also printed my second console.log, which is the HTML code that is inside of that ID header. See that? In fact, if I highlight on it, see how when I hover over this, then it turns blue? So I know that I actually have a hold of that thing. I have a hold of it. And I can do all sorts of things with it. I can change its style. I can make it disappear. Things like that. All right. Now I'm going to ask. Does that work for everybody? If it doesn't, let me come around again, and you guys can find it out. Who has it working and help each other? Is it working for y'all? Is it working for everybody on the coast? Good. You just come over there. Is it working for you, Garrett? Oh, your console's on the side. Yep, that's fine. Yeah, I think it's this one. Set it down. Oh, there's something else. Anybody have any questions? Anybody like wonder why sometimes you put the semicolons and sometimes you don't? You wonder that? No? Right, so the semicolons are kind of optional in JavaScript. The semicolons separate a thought, and every thought, every command has to be its own line unless there are semicolons. And so sometimes people will take all of their JavaScript code and remove all the white space to make it smaller. And in those cases, the semicolons are necessary because it would remove, like, so in other words, this statement, don't do this yourself because I'm just going to undo all this. This has the same exact meaning as the first thing that I did. I removed all the white space, and I can hit refresh, and it'll do the same thing. However, humans can't read that very well. So there's really no reason to put the what do you call those things? Semicolon there, unless you are planning to compress, they call it minify your code later. Okay, so unless you're planning to minify your code, no need to put those there. I do it out of force of habit. So sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not. Like on this line, it's not there. What's that? It does not hurt anything, right? It doesn't hurt anything. It doesn't help anything. You see, it's not there here, not there here, but it is there on that one. Not there, it is there on that one. Let's just say I did something like this is not going to work now. If I refresh the page, it's going to say I didn't understand that. So you either need to have a carriage return, or you need to have a semicolon. Every time you have a new, these are called statements in programming. Every time you have a new statement, you need to have a carriage return or a semicolon. I would recommend most of the time you do a carriage return, because what that will do is help you as you're reading it. All right. Now, there are lots of ways. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do here is talk about functions. Okay? Functions are little pieces of code, and there are lots of built-in functions. Like this is a built-in function, right? Okay? But we can also have functions that we write. We can have a function that we do ourselves. And a function has the same things in it that the built-in functions do. And those are that they take inputs. There can be more than one input that they take. And at the end, they have an output. And in the middle, they do things. All right? I'm going to write a really simple function to illustrate this point. So all functions start with the word function. Okay? And they look like this. So that's the guts of a function in JavaScript. You tell it it's a function, and this is where you put stuff that comes into the function. And then I'm going to put this return. And then this is where you put the stuff that comes out of the function. Okay, the stuff. What's that? Because the question mark is the thing that goes out. We haven't written that yet. So, like in math terms, it might be more comfortable if I wrote return x. Like we don't know what it is yet. It's an unknown at this point. So that's probably better. X is going to be the return. I'm going to write a real simple function that just adds two things together. Okay? So I'm going to say A, comma, B. That's how you separate the things coming in. So A and B are both inputs to this function, and X is the return. So the only thing I have to do to finish my adding function is say something like X equals A plus B. So this function is going to take the value that's in A, the value that's in B, it's going to add them together, and it's going to put them in a new, what do we call this? What's X now? Yeah, it's a variable. It's kind of like an element. You can put an element inside of a variable, but this is a variable. This is like H. H is a variable that holds an element. X is going to hold, who knows? It's going to hold whatever we want it to hold, but it's going to be the product of A and B. The sum of A and B. The sum of A and B. All right? So now we've got this function that just adds these two numbers. I'm going to continue on down the line here. Now, functions themselves, we have to give them a label if we want to use them. So we could call our function like, I don't know, adder. Adder equals this function. You think of a better name? Like sum might be a better name. Summer. That wouldn't be. All right, so we're gonna add our values together using this function. So this is the name of the function. Now, incidentally, the adder at this point is a variable, just like all those other variables. But this variable happens to be a function. That's not necessarily important, but this is a function that it's also a variable. Well, the function stored in the variable. Okay, to call the function, all I have to do is say adder and put in two numbers, like 5 and 11. But I have to catch the value coming out, which is going to be X. I have to catch this value. So I could do something like sum equals adder 511. So now that X that's coming out of the function is going to be caught by this variable. This function here is the same, or it is a function just like this function is. This function is taking header and returning an element. This function is taking 5 and 11 and returning the sum. All right, now if we want to actually see the sum, we have to do something. We have to either put it on the page, or for right now, we'll just console.log it. Console.log sum. So now what we're doing is saying, okay, 5 and 11 are going to go into this function. The result is going to be stored in this new variable called sum, and we're going to look at that value sum. Refresh it. Is 16 the correct answer? What's that? Didn't work. But is 11 plus 5 is 16. All right. Syntax error. So line 99, okay, that's way down the line. Okay, go back up. So my guess is that what it's saying is that you, see And so it was like still looking for another squiggly bracket to save that guy. You know what I mean? 16 good. Just so you don't have to see that every time. All right, what's your error saying? Line 56, that's this. What's that? All right.
So 40 started.
I don't know, when I put a new, like maybe that was a squiggly, because I can't even see. Maybe this wasn't squiggly and I made it see and it worked. I think that's what the problem is. All I did was retype that.
Okay.
Okay, so you had zero. So you just need another squiggly, save it. And refresh the page. Cool, now it's working. All right, how's everybody on the coast? Some issues? I'm not saying everybody's issues are the same as up here, but the issues that we found were that these two brackets both have to be squiggly brackets that open and close, and two people up here didn't have the second squiggly bracket, so we had to put that second squiggly bracket in. Okay, and then one person up here had a squiggly bracket here when it should have been a parenthesis here. All right. Who's this isn't working still? Is everybody's not working? Heather, is that you that said that?
Yeah, but I might have heard the problem.
Oh. Hey, if anybody wants to send me theirs real quick, we could look at it. Send it to graber@gmail.com, and then we could look at it. It'll be good for everybody to see things so that they can look out for things in the future. If any of you want to send something up, anybody doing that? If not, what I can do is just post this version so far. I'll just go ahead and save this as example 1, meaning the first one they posted. So now if we go to course material, edit.
I'll send mine out.
Sure. Then we can look at it real quick, and I did post my working example there, so that if any of you don't want to send it up, you don't want to mess with it, just download just download the one that I just posted, and then you'll be the same place. You could go and look and see where yours is different. So all we're doing now is that, you mean where are we going this with the big picture?
Yeah, I mean, I'm myself crazy, messed up. Where's this what's it supposed to do on the web page?
It's not doing anything on the web page right now. Yep. So the point here is that, like in the future, we might have have a bunch of points, and we're going to stick them in a function, and that function changes all their color to green, or makes them all larger, or it looks through each one of the ones that it gets, and it colors some green, some blue, some red, depending on some variable. So that's why we're learning about functions. But right now the function doesn't do anything cool. It just adds two numbers together. All right.
Yeah, I figured it out.
Okay.
I had a spelling error.
Okay, and that can matter. So in JavaScript, of course spelling matters, but also capitalization matters. So I couldn't write with an E here, with a lowercase e, that wouldn't work. So capitalization has to be consistent. So capitalization and of course spelling have to be consistent to work. All right. Any guesses as to what would happen if I did this? If I put H in here instead of 5. Now it's going to add H and 11. What's the value of H at this point? It's actually the header element. So if I refresh this page, oops, I want to get to the one that has the thing at the bottom. What is that? Oh, because I saved this. I did the thing right. I saved this as 1. I'm going to go back and save it as, I saved it as a text file. I got to save it as an HTML file. I'm going to go back and save it as, all right. Okay. One of the things that's interesting here is that it printed out object HTML div element 11. Okay. So one of the things about JavaScript that isn't the same as a lot of other programming languages, like for example, what are you using in 101? C++? I'm pretty sure that C++ wouldn't accept mixing two different types of variables and trying to add them together. Most computer programming languages don't do that. JavaScript is made for doing things quickly and showing things to people. And so when you try to add an element to the number 11, it finds a way to do it. Okay? It just pushes them together. It's called concatenation. So if we change this to hello and George, we could refresh it and it would just shove those two text things together and it would say hello George. So, if you've taken a computer programming course in the past and didn't use JavaScript, you may be familiar with the term casting. I mean, it just means taking a variable and turning it into another variable on the fly, another data type on the fly. And JavaScript does a lot of that stuff for you. If you add anything to a string, it turns it into a string. In other words, if you add any value to text, it turns it into text. So if you had hello and the number 5, it just turns 5 into text and puts them together. All right. So that's a function. All right. Now, this is probably a good time to actually talk about different data types because I kind of brought that up already. So in computer science, the things that are text are actually called a string, which is short for character string. So this is a character string. We could create a new character string by just saying, what? My name equals George. Oops, you have to put it in quotes. So now I have a variable called my name, and I set it equal to George. JavaScript doesn't have too many data types to worry about. Okay, it has what's called a number. So you could set anything like my age equal to 41 years old. Okay? So that is a number data type. It does not need quotes around it. The reason why you need the quotes around George is because if you didn't have the quotes around George, it's looking for a variable named George. Does that make sense? Like, if the quotes aren't there, what you're saying is, I literally mean George. I don't mean a variable named George. So, George, so this is the way to do a string, this is the way to do a number. All right, what other data types are there? You may have noticed this one right here. Okay. You could say, we could call this my coordinates, because I am right here. I'll just say my coord. Okay. This is a special data type called an array. Now in computer science, an array has a special meaning that's a little different than this array. But we're worried about JavaScript this semester. And an array here just means that it's a variable that actually contains a bunch of other variables inside of it. So my coord is a variable that has 2 variables inside of it. So I'm going to console.log that, just so you get an idea. Console.log my coord. All right? So what I'm going to do there is show the value of this variable. I'm going to refresh. And this is what that's showing right there. That doesn't look very interesting, but if you'll notice, it says 0 is equal to this one and 1 is equal to that one. All right, so this is an array. And if I want to get individual elements in an array, I can do that by doing this. In other words, what I'm saying is I want the very first element of my coord, or I want the second element of my coord. The first one, the second one. So now if I hit refresh, I just printed out that second element, the first element, this one. Refresh it again, and I get the other number. It's 0 based. It starts counting at 0. 0, 1. And this could be as long as I want it to be. I could say George here. So now I've got a variable called my coord. I've got the first element, which is 0, the second element, which is 1, and the third element, which is George. So I've got a number, and then a string. That's how it's different than an array in computer science, where they all have to be the same data type. Like in C++, that would definitely be the case. But not in JavaScript. So now if I put 2 here, I'm going to get George out there. So this is 0, 1, and 2. For example, let's put them in opposite order. So now I'm going to print 1, and then I'm going to print 0. So now I'm printing everything in that array, but I'm putting it in the opposite order. And it looks like George, blah, blah, blah. See that? And that. All right? I think that's it. That's one data type. This is another data type called a number. This is called a string. This is called a number. This is called an array. An array is you're just grouping a bunch of variables together. That's all you're doing when you create an array. There's one more data type, and it's called, in JavaScript, they call it an object. Okay? They call it an object. And so the object that I'm going to create is called, I'm just going to call it me. Me equals, objects are started and ended with a squiggly bracket. They're kind of like arrays, but they work a little bit different. So I go like this. Name, colon, George, comma, age, colon, 41, comma, what's some other attributes that I have? Height. Is that how you spell height? What's that? Height, 6 feet. I'll just write 6. So, well, actually, I write 72 because I'll do it in inches. Actually, let's do middle. It'll be Thomas. And last, Raver. Okay? So I've just created this object called me, and it has lots of different variables inside of it. It's got a variable named called name that has the value George, a variable called age that has the value 41, a variable called height that's 72, my middle name and my last name, and those are all stored in individual variables. Okay? This is called an object. In JavaScript, this is called an object. And in other, for those of you who are in computer science classes, in other languages, this would still be one step from a true object. This is probably what would be referred to as an associative array in other programming languages. But in JavaScript, this is called an object. And in fact, this text here is often referred to as JSON, or JavaScript Object Notation. And so, one thing that we could do to take this a step further is to actually model the world as objects, because in GIS we do that all the time. The world is full of things, and we have objects. I mean, we can think of the world as objects, and all we have to do to make an object spatial is to have a coordinate or coordinates associated with it. So we could simply put something right here that said you put colons inside here, and then put this guy right here. And now we've made this object spatial. In other words, it has a location. Me has a location. I know that's not proper grammar. I should say I have a location, but the name of the variable is me. Okay? I'm gonna go all the way out. Now I could console.log me. So I'm gonna comment this one out just so that it doesn't show up. Console.log me. Okay, console.log me. I'm gonna save that guy. Now when I refresh, I'll get this object is console logged, and it has my age, it has my coordinate, which is itself an array. You can actually have objects inside of objects, and you can have arrays inside of objects. Height, last, middle, name, that's all there. If I want to access any of the attributes of me, I can use the notation in two different ways. I can do the same thing that's done like this, where I can say name, like that. I can do that. But this time I have to have name in quotes because it actually has to be the word name. Otherwise, it's looking for a variable called name. This is not capitalized, so that also needs, yes, capitalization matters. Okay? Or this is an equivalent statement. I'm going to change this back to 511 because it makes more sense. So when I post it, okay. Or I can just do me dot. If it's an object, I can use dot notation. So I can say me dot name. These are equivalent statements. Okay. However, in a situation where you actually wanted to put a variable in, you would have to do it this way. In other words, if you wanted to make a variable, you would have to put that variable name here. But if we're using the literal word name, you can do it either way. But the name has to be in quotes. Control S, and now it'll say George at the bottom. So that is all the data types that we're going to use in this course. We talked about them all. We've got character strings for strings, numbers. We've got arrays, and we've got objects. So for the next few weeks, we're going to practice placing objects onto our maps. Put objects onto the map. Me has a spatial.
Why it doesn't appear on the map?
Well, because right now we've just stored it in a variable. We haven't actually put it on. We haven't told the map to put it there. That's what we're going to get to. That's exactly where we're progressing. So me is a variable that's in the computer's brain now. But we haven't told our maps, which is another variable actually. We can see we created our map down here. We said map is equal to this. We created it, we told it to do a few things, but we actually have not put me onto the map. Right? Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have errors? If you have errors, then let me zoom this back up. Oh, because you didn't close the meeting. Good. Now you do have something you can over now. Oh, that's just your person. How about y'all? Is it running? Good. What time is it? 6:30? All right. Yeah, um, I think this is a good, place to take a break. Because the next thing that we're gonna do is actually add me, up to the map. All right, so we're gonna do that. And we need to do a few things to get to that point. But we'll do that. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the video, and then we'll take about a 10-minute break and come back, and we'll add that to the map, and then we'll talk about a few other things. We're going to add it to the map, and then we'll talk about what the map is, and then we'll talk about jQuery for a second. Yes. I will help you. I'm just going to stop this video real quick. I just want to make sure that it's all really working.